What's up guys, Coach PJ. I'm here today with Coach Kyler, and we're gonna go over how, and more importantly, why we use chains and bands for strength and power training. So adding chains and bands to the bar adds what's called accommodating resistance, which basically means that we deload some of the weight during the movement, and then the weight increases during different parts of the movement. So I'm gonna let Coach Kyler get in here and demonstrate a back squat with the chains added to the bar here. So you'll see on both sides of the bar, he's got 25-pound chains, and some of the links are already on the floor. So as he goes down in his squat, go ahead down, Coach. When he comes down to the bottom here, almost half the chain is deloaded on the floor. And then as he comes back up, the links come up off the floor. You can go ahead and rack that. As those links come off the floor, we're increasing the load. So the weakest part of his squat is going to be down at the bottom. So if he demonstrates from the side here, yeah, just go ahead and do a squat. When he gets down here, his joints are in the least advantageous position. So he's got the least mechanical advantage. Slowly come up. As he starts to come up, so we'll go like halfway. Right about here, he's much more advantageous, which means he's going to be much stronger in this range of motion. So as he's coming up, we are increasing the weight. So as he gets stronger through that movement, we're adding more and more resistance. So we're challenging him through the full range of motion. So what happens is if he's back squatting, let's say Coach Kyler can back squat 300 pounds. That means that at his weakest point, he can move 300 pounds. But at that top range of motion, he can maybe move 350 pounds, 400 pounds. So we're really not challenging that range of motion that much. So by adding chains to the bar, we're adding that accommodating resistance. So it deloads during his weakest portion at the bottom, and then it starts to increase the load as he comes up. So we're continuously strengthening him through that full range of motion. And that's obviously going to lead to increase in strength gains, increase in power. This is great for specific exercises where it matches the strength curve of the exercise, but there are also other exercises where this is not going to be very productive. So a couple big things with the chains is we want to add a lot of chain to the bottom so we deload a lot of weight. What a lot of people do sometimes with the chains is they don't have heavy enough chains or long enough chains where they're not deloading much weight at the bottom. So what you can do is you can actually add extensions where we have little clips that are additional weights at the bottom, and you continuously add those extensions so we deload a lot of weight at the bottom and then increase it as he comes up. We typically use these mostly with heavy barbell exercises, particularly squats and bench. Those are the primary times that we'll use chains added to the bar, and you can vary the resistance of the chain based on the strength that you're looking to gain. Another great use for chains is to add some external resistance to body weight movements. So this is really good. I use this a lot with athletes who may have an upper body injury. I use this specifically when I had a shoulder injury, so I could add some load to my lower body without holding weights in my hands. So Coach Kyler here has two 25-pound chains around his neck. So we've added 50 pounds of resistance to his back here. But let's say he just came off shoulder surgery like me, can't put his hands behind his back to grab a barbell, he can't hold dumbbells in his hands. We just added 50 pounds of chains here, and then he's gonna just do some body weight exercises. So we'll do some reverse lunges here. Go ahead. And now we can load up that lower body without putting any stress onto his shoulder. Okay, the other great benefit of this is it makes you look really badass, makes a lot of noise, and it looks a lot cooler. So if people look over, they see you with the chains, you're gonna look really tough and badass. That's just an extra benefit that goes into adding the chains as an external resistance. So like I said, you can use the chains to add some resistance to body weight movements. So we showed the lunge, you can also add it to push-ups, pull-ups, squats, all kinds of stuff. One other thing I like to do when I add chains to bodyweight movements is we can use it to deload, so we can really max out. So if Coach Kyler's doing push-ups here, I've got him set up on the boxes just so we can get in regular push-up position, but the chain isn't going to deload on the floor. And he's going to go ahead and get up in push-up position. Again, we're going to add our 50 pounds of chains across his back. And let's say we were trying to do max reps here. So he's going to go out, just bang out some push-ups. We're deloading a little bit on the floor, that's okay. I like the spot here, make sure the chains stay on. Now let's say he was fatigued, that was failure. I take one chain off, now it's 25 pounds less. He can get a few more reps, gets one more in there, Now he's fatigued again. I take the other chain off. Go ahead, and he can finish it out and bang out some more reps. Good, you can relax. So that's a good way you can add that if you're trying to really go for some hypertrophy gains or add some volume. You can overload, and then as soon as he gets to failure or gets to fatigue, I usually have him leave one in the tank. I take a chain off, and then he can bang out a lot more reps because we just took 25 pounds off. So I'll use that for inverted rows, push-ups, sometimes pull-ups, but that's another good benefit to adding the chains is you can quickly deload in the middle of the movement. So when you use bands, it's very similar to using chains, but there's a couple of differences that we use. Bands still provide accommodating resistance, so same thing with the chain. The band still allows you to deload during the lower portion of the lift, and then it adds resistance as the band starts to stretch during the upward phase of the lift. So one of the big things that I use bands for is compensatory acceleration training, which is basically a fancy way of saying moving the bar as fast as possible. So when we're training athletes, one of the biggest things we focus on is bar speed. We want to always be focusing on moving the bar as fast as possible during the concentric portion of the lift, or mostly the upward portion of the lift. So we're going to use a demo of bench press, and Coach Kyler is going to get set up here in the bench press and show you how we use the bands to aid in that compensatory acceleration. So he's going to go ahead and do a slow rep on the way down, and then he's going to explode up as fast as he can. So go ahead and do one, Coach. Nice and slow and controlled, and when he touches his chest, he's going to fire up. So naturally, what's going to happen is at the top of that movement, he's going to have to decelerate the bar. If we didn't have the band here, he's going to have to slow down, otherwise he'd throw that bar out of his hands. So by adding the band, he can accelerate. Go ahead and do another one. He can accelerate through the full range of motion. Drive up. Good. So he can accelerate all the way through, and you can rack it, all the way through that full range of motion. The other thing we can do with the band is we can go speed bench. So now we're going to go really light, and we're going to get a bunch of fast reps together. So go ahead. Let's get 4 fast reps. Go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good, and rack it. So again, that band pulling down on the bar allowed him to get those fast reps without the bar actually leaving his hand, and pulled him right into the next rep. And if you look at the band, you see the stretch on it. The further we have that band stretched out, the more tension is going to be on the band. And then as he brings the bar down to his chest, it's going to deload some of that tension during the weaker portion of the lift. All right, so another great way to use the bands, I talked about compensatory acceleration training. So we can add a band to a lot of different movements for the same purpose. So we're going to demonstrate a dumbbell step up with the addition of the band here. So what we're going to do with the band is pulling down and backwards. So during a normal step up, if Coach Kyler puts his foot up on the box here, when he goes to step up, when he goes to stand up at the top, he's going to have to decelerate a little bit as he goes to stand up. So during the top end range of motion, he's going to be decelerating naturally, otherwise he's going to jump off the box. So by adding this band resistance, he's going to be able to accelerate through the full range of motion. The band's going to increase that resistance during that top end portion, just like we talked about on the bench press and on the squat. So go ahead and grab your dumbbells. So Coach Kyler's going to do an explosive step up here, driving his foot through the box and standing up fast. And he's going to step down under control. And you notice he's got a good forward body lean because the band's pulling backwards. So we're going to look for his front shin angle to be a little bit forward, his torso angle to be a little bit forward, so he can drive up and through the motion. Go ahead again. And he's really focusing on accelerating that hip forward. So I like to cue my athletes to throw their belt buckle forward. So instead of just standing up, go ahead and do a lazy one, where he just focused more on standing up. And even that one, he still had to accelerate his hip through because the band was pulling him backwards. Put the dumbbells down. One big mistake you'll see if you're going to use this type of exercise is if the athlete's not strong enough or the band is too strong, they're not going to be able to maintain their vertical torso, and their hips are going to kick out. So we want to make sure they're maintaining this position and accelerating through. So we'll show a bad one here where your butt's sticking back. As he goes to stand up, his butt comes back, and then he brings it through. So I want to make sure his torso stays upright, his hips stay in, and then he accelerates through that range of motion. So without the dumbbells, just show one more good one. Accelerating his hip through, really squeezing his butt cheek and throwing that belt buckle forward. You can relax. So another very important thing when it comes to bands and chains is which exercises does it make sense and which exercises is it counterproductive. Bands are not good for all exercises. So what we want to do is we want to pick an exercise where the resistance of the band matches the strength curve of the exercise. So basically what that means is the band tension should increase as you get stronger in the movement. So we showed a dumbbell step up, we showed a squat, we showed a bench press. All of those movements, the weakest portion is going to be at the bottom. That's where the band or the chain is going to be deloaded. And then as I go to press up, I'm going to be increasing in strength, and the band is going to increase, or the tension on the chain is going to increase. So if it comes to other exercises where the strength curve is the opposite, so for example, a glute ham raise. A glute ham raise, the toughest portion is the top. So as you come down, you're a lot stronger at the bottom, you have more power at the bottom. As you come to the top of that motion, it's going to be a lot more difficult, and that's where people struggle. Same for a pull-up. The most difficult part of a pull-up is getting the top end range of motion. So if we added a band resistance to a pull-up, where it's resisting from the ground, it's actually going to be the opposite of the strength curve. It's going to increase tension during his weakest portion. So that's not going to be applicable, and then he's not going to be able to get any extra strength out of that motion. Same for the glute ham raise. So I don't like to add bands to the bottom of a glute ham raise because the band's going to stretch at the weakest portion of the movement. Another couple things that we're not going to show that we use bands for is assistance work. I don't use a lot of band assisted movements in terms of weightlifting movements. That's something used a lot in powerlifting. You might hear of band assisted deadlifts or squats, bench press. I don't personally use a lot of that, but that's another use for bands. And then we can use bands for a lot of different accessory work. But again, a lot of people use bands as an assistance for pull-ups. Same thing if you're using a band assist. If I put my knee in a band when I'm doing a pull-up, the band stretches at the bottom so now I'll have the most assistance at the bottom, and then as I get up to the top, the band's gonna start to deload and it's not gonna assist me as much. So that's not really gonna help me. If I'm really struggling with pull-ups, the hardest part is gonna be finishing that top end of the pull-up. And the band's not gonna be helping me with that part. It's only gonna be helping me at the bottom where I'm the strongest. So that's why I really don't like using bands as an assistance for pull-ups either. So that's pretty much it. That's the main reasons that I'll use chains and bands with my athletes. I'm typically using them to maximize speed, power, or strength. And I'll use it to match certain exercises where it's going to match that strength curve, and it's going to add extra resistance during the top end portions where the athlete's going to be the strongest. If it doesn't match the strength curve, then it doesn't make sense for the type of training that we're going to be doing. And it's actually going to be counterproductive for getting you stronger and getting you faster. So that's how to use chains and bands. Feel free to throw those into your next workout. If you have questions on it, you can shoot me an email at pj@coachpjnestler.com. Or you can find me on Instagram and send me a video if you have questions on if you're implementing them properly. I'll be happy to answer any of those questions for you.